Chess YouTube, do not, I repeat, do not under any circumstances memorize chess openings. Now, I know a lot of you right now love memorizing openings. You love memorizing long, complicated variations, but it's not making you a better online player. And in this video, I'm going to break down why, plus a better way to get better at the opening phase of the game and actually win more online games and get better at online chess. Now, in the game, my opponent, it's actually one of my online chess students. He opens 1e4 and I go e5. And we just played this training game literally today. It was a really, really fun match. And this guy, by the way, he's rated about 1500 in rapid. His blitz rating is a little bit lower right now, but he's actually a much stronger player than this. So, e4, e5, we have knight f3, knight c6, and then bishop c4, the Italian opening. Now here as black, I go knight to f6, pressuring the pawn on the e4 square. So far, it's sort of all theory. This is the two knights defense to the Italian opening. And here, white's got a wide variety of plans and ideas. He can go d3, that is perhaps the main line. He can also go knight c3, or queen to e2, or castles, or d4, or even knight g5, the dreaded fried liver attack. And in the game, white actually does go knight to g5. And the idea behind this is very simple. White here, he's threatening the pawn on the f7 square. If black does nothing, if black goes to, say, I don't know, h6, white's going to jump in with the knight, take on f7, and completely obliterate the black position. So black here, he does have to find some way to stop the threat of knight takes f7 or bishop takes on the f7 square. So what can black do? Well, here the strongest move for black is going to be d5. The point being, you're attacking the bishop, you're blocking this diagonal, and you're forcing white to make some sort of concession. If he takes on d5 with the pawn, then white's bishop is no longer targeting f7, and therefore black should get some counterplay. And that is what happens in the game. Here, white takes on d5, and I play this move, knight to a5, attacking the bishop. Now, so far, I have to admit, these moves, they were memorized. You kind of have to know certain moves in a very, very sharp opening like the fried liver attack. Here, the bishop on c4, it's under attack, and white plays the best move here. Bishop b5, attacking my king on the e8 square. Now, from here, what you have to do as black, and up until now, we sort of are in memorized territory. You do have to memorize some lines in a sharp opening like this. Here, I play the move c6, blocking the attack. White takes. I take back. And now here, the bishop on b5 is under attack. Now, black, as black, I had to give up one pawn in the opening so far. I have 6 pawns versus the 7 pawns of white. However, in return for that one pawn, I'm going to get tremendous activity for all of my pieces, especially this knight, these 2 bishops, the queen, and so on. Meanwhile, white, his pieces really aren't that well coordinated. I mean, the knight on g5, it's potentially under attack by the queen, the bishop literally under attack by the pawn, and so on. So white's coordination is not as good so far in this opening. Now here, white's going to have a wide variety of plans. He can go, for example, back to d3 or e2 with the bishop. White can also play this move, queen to f3, and that is what he played in the game. So queen to f3 is the move, and this is really where this whole opening line begins. So far, these are all sort of memorized lines, but now this is where the real fun begins. Black here has a wide variety of options, and some of the ideas for black are absolutely insane. For example, black here, he can actually take the bishop on b5, giving up the rook, among other options. There's a lot of totally insane ideas, but this does bring us to the main point of this video. How do you learn openings? Do you memorize openings? And if you don't memorize, what is the actual way to learn openings? In my opinion, memorizing is okay. However, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing by far, is to understand the ideas behind the opening, understand why you're playing the moves you're playing, and understand what your overall plan is. Meaning, if your opponent gave you an extra 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 moves, do you actually know where your pieces would go? Do you know what kind of threats you would try to make against the opponent, and so on? If you do, you should be okay. If you don't, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Now here, queen f3 is a very common idea for white, and I have a simple plan I like for black here. The plan involves going bishop b7, ignoring the pawn on c6. So here, I go bishop e7, and the idea is you allow white to trade on c6 if he wants to. White can take, I take back, then the queen takes. From there, I have a very, very simple idea. I go bishop d7, blocking the attack on the queen. I castle, and then I mobilize usually the knight and the rook in a very particular way. Now, there are a lot of lines you could memorize here, but in my opinion, memorizing is not the way to go. I had not studied this opening in a long time, and because I understood the ideas behind the opening, I still managed to find the best moves of black. So, white here, he takes up the gauntlet, or throws down the gauntlet. He drops the hammer. White here drops the hammer, Thor style. He takes on c6. I take back, and the queen takes. So far, so good. From here, I know my plan in general is to block the attack of the queen, and then castle, and then mobilize my knight and my rook. So far, I'm not memorizing. I'm playing based on ideas, and I block the attack of the queen. Now, the queen has to go somewhere, and the white queen, it turns out, has many different squares. For example, you can go to f3, you can go to c4 or c3, you can go to a6, and so on. There are just a lot of different squares here. Queen b7 is playable. There are a lot of different places the queen can go to. So the point is, if you try to memorize, what do I do if the queen goes here, or here, or here, or here, or here? If you literally try to memorize all of those different lines, it becomes impossible. Like, you just can't do it. So instead of that, what you want to do, again, is understand the ideas and the plans behind what you're doing. So here, no matter where white goes with the queen, I'm going to castle, and then I mobilize the knight and the rook in a very specific way. So in the game, white does go queen to f3. That is the most common move. Sorry, queen to f3. Misclick there. Queen to f3. The white queen goes back. And here, what is white's threat? Well, white here has some pressure on f7. If I move the knight to, say, I don't know, d5 or g4 or wherever else, I actually get checkmated in one move. So you don't want to do that. That is literally checkmate. So you don't do that. Instead here, I simply castle the next phase of my plan. Castling. Very simple. And now, as discussed, my plan here is mobilizing this rook and this knight right here in some fashion. So what is white going to do right here? He's got a lot of options. He can castle. He can go d3. He can go knight c3. He can go knight e4. He can go any number of ideas here. There are just so many possibilities. So again, if you try to learn every single line for white, it's almost impossible. And even if you do, the opponent can just improvise with, I don't know, b3 or h3 or knight h3 or whatever else. And then what do? The point is, sooner or later, you're going to have a position in the game where you don't quite know the exact move to play. And at that point, you have to rely on your understanding of the opening. And again, I have my plan. The rook goes to c8. The knight goes to most likely d5 or g4 and so on. If I know those ideas, I should be okay no matter what white does. Now here, white goes for the move knight to e4. And I'm going to be honest, this move right here, it kind of surprised me. I'm not sure I've ever seen this move by white right here in this position, and for good reason. According to the engine, it's not exactly a good move. Here is black. Despite being down 2 pawns, I have technically a massive advantage in this game. So, what should I be doing here? What's the plan for black? Well, under normal circumstances, my plan is something like rook c8 targeting c2 and knight g4 threatening ideas like f5, or perhaps knight to g4 to h6 to f5 to d4, targeting c2 and the queen. So these are kind of the ideas for black. Now here it turns out simply trading on d4 or even going knight to d5 and tending knight b4 are the strongest ideas. Now I didn't quite know that. Instead, I play the move knight g4. Now this move was actually a little bit of a mistake, maybe a lot of bit of a mistake. It's the right idea in many lines, just not in this exact position. So what is the problem? Well, here white can go h3, driving back my knight, and then going d4. Kind of a really weird mishmash of moves, but it turns out to be very, very strong if he finds it. Now, fortunately for me, in the game, my opponent did not find this. He castles, which is a logical idea. But sometimes in these ultra sharp lines, in these gambit lines, logical moves aren't always the way to go. Now here, as black, I know, again, my plan is some combination of finding a better square for this knight, perhaps going back to h6, then f5, then d4, perhaps rook c8, targeting c2 also, and then to either f6 or even g6. Also f5 ideas. So I have all of these ideas for the knight going to here, the rook going to like here, the f pawn going here. I have these general ideas, the bishop maybe going here later, stuff like this. So I have these general ideas and I can kind of play around in my head and just find the one I like the most. Here I play the move rook c8, a very, very logical, flexible idea, nothing wrong with it. Technically, I could go for the idea of f5 and then e4 next. That is the top engine line. But instead, I'm playing it safe. Rook c8, a solid move. Nothing wrong with that. And now white's got to find a move again. So white here, again, he's got a lot of ideas. He can go d3 or d4 or h3 or knight c3, rook e1. He's got a lot of ideas. And again, you can't memorize everything here. There's just too many possibilities. Therefore, you must rely on your general understanding. Now, white here goes knight b to c3. What is white's threat? Well, maybe he's going to go knight d5. That is the only real threat by that move. It's not that dangerous. So here is black. What should I be doing? Well, in general, in chess, here's how I think in chess, in case you were curious. There's a lot of talk about CCTO, checks, captures, threats, optimizations. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that system. I use a system I call attack or develop. So here's how it works. In my games, I always think, well, first of all, what is my opponent's threat? Do they have a threat? Here, there's no real threat. I'm fine. So if there's no threat, I go to the system attack or develop. Either I want to attack, I want to find some way to immediately attack, threaten the opponent, pressure the opponent, or if I can't do that, I want to develop and bring out more pieces into more active squares. So here, can I attack white? What are my attacking options? Well, one idea might be, for example, bishop c6, threatening f5, pinning the knight. That's actually quite dangerous. However, it does draw knight on g4. So that is not a good move. What else could I do? I could go, for example, rook to c6, intending maybe rook to f6 or g6. That's also a decent idea, sort of a mix of like development plus attacking. But in the game, I find a simpler option that I really, really like. That is the move f5 here. Simply launching the pawn forward, attacking the knight, and maybe intending e4 next. So I go for f5. It makes so much sense to me. I have the pawn majority on the king side, the 4 versus 3 majority right here. What can white do to defend? Not a whole lot. So here, white finds the best move and actually maybe the only move, knight g3. Every other square is covered. Now here, black's got a lot of options. You can go f4, attacking the knight. You can go e4, attacking the queen. You can go bishop c6, attacking the queen. There are a lot of ideas here. So how do you find the absolute best one? Well, honestly, you sort of have to calculate. Again, first things first. Are there any threats against my position? Turns out the answer is no. White is not threatening anything. I am in the driver's seat here. So second step, what attacks do I have? Well, these 3 moves seem to be the most promising attacking ideas. If I didn't have any, I would go straight to develop. However, I do have attacking ideas here. Therefore, let's consider them. If I go f4, I don't like that, as then this knight gains access to the e4 square, and I think white is doing okay. Now, e4 looks very promising. The one problem is if the queen goes back to e2, I'm not really sure how to continue the attack. f4 ideas look very good. However, again, the pawn on e4 would be super, super weak in that circumstance. So overall, I like this move, bishop c6. I like it because it's very aggressive. The bishop obviously being way, way better placed on c6 versus d7. Beyond that, the queen, obviously, it can't take an f5 as the rook covers that square. And overall, I'm staying flexible with my pawns, but also being very aggressive and potentially forcing out mistakes. So overall, I like this move a lot. So the queen, it's got to go somewhere. In the game, queen d3 was chosen. The queen slides over. Now, here, I know from experience, if I trade on d3, despite being down 2 pawns, I should be at least equal, if not a little bit better. Hard to complain as black out of the opening into the queenless middle game sort of scenario. So here, I simply trade on d3. We have queen takes, c takes, and then simply rook c d8, targeting the pawn on d3. Now, this move here is a solid move, but I missed a slightly stronger idea. Again, if I had used my attack or develop idea, I would say, what are my attacking ideas? Oh, Rook to d8, perhaps. What else? Oh, f4 is an idea intending f3. And it turns out f4 is actually the way to go here. So f4 would have been strong, attacking the knight, intending f3 like this. And obviously, we're way past the opening phase. But again, the pawn structure and everything is still sort of reminiscent of the fried liver attack opening, and I'm still relying on general plans and ideas from the opening in general. So it's so important in your openings to understand the ideas and plans, not just memorize. So here, f4 would have been super, super strong. Instead, rook c d8 was the move here, sliding over, attacking d3. And sooner or later, in my opinion, these two pawns, they're going to fall. White is just too passive. The pawn on d2 blocks in the bishop, which blocks in the rook. White's development overall is super, super hindered. And again, I know this from my general understanding of the fried liver attack, which is why I can play down two pawns like this and be very, very calm and not have much to worry about as black. Now here, white goes h3, attacking my knight. What is white's threat? Obviously, capturing the knight. I got to go back. So knight h6 was chosen in the game. Now white goes b3. So what is white's threat? It's simple. He wants to go bishop b2. Obviously, sooner or later, the bishop, it's got to get off the back rank. It's not leaving here anytime soon. Therefore, b2 does make a lot of sense here for white. However, I do win the free pawn. Rook takes d3. And now, sooner or later, the pawn on d2, it's going to fall as well, I believe. Now, white goes rook b1. Honestly, I'm not quite sure why. Kind of a waiting move here, I guess, perhaps. I'm not really sure the idea. And here I play a move that I really, really like. I want you to pay very, very close attention here to this next move for black. Actually, you know what? Good time for a puzzle. If you like puzzles, pause the video and try and see if you can find the aggressive idea for black here that is very, very strong and very tricky and very trappy. The move here, bishop c5. So what's my threat? I'm actually threatening to win the game on the spot with the move rook takes g3. A brilliant move, the point being, the pawn on the f2 square is now pinned to the king. So with this move here, I develop, bring my piece to a much more active square, while also threatening the knight with the rook as the pawn is pinned. So combining development with attacking play, and the opponent has to find the right response just to stay alive, and if they don't, they lose on the spot. I love, love, love moves like this in chess. In the game, my opponent finds a good move, king to h2, getting the king off the back rank. He's playing very, very well so far, by the way. I go rook fd8, developing a solid move, pressuring d2. And now we have knight to a4. And that knight move, I'm not so sure about it. It looks kind of strange to me. The knight on the edge of the board, it looks quite dim. It's not controlling a lot of squares. And here I simply go back to the e7 square, bishop e7. Now, this move, as soon as I played it, I regretted it. I don't really like it. Why would I go there when I could go right here and target d2? I'm not sure. That, to me, seems way stronger, but the engine says they're about equal. I digress. Anyways, in the game, I go back to the e7 square, bishop e7. It's a blitz game. What can you do? White here, he goes f3. Now, this move, I was sort of happy to see. I didn't really know why, but it just seemed like white here has too many weaknesses. He's got too many weak points, and it just doesn't look like a good move to me. So I continue. Bishop b4, pressuring d2. Again, attack or develop. What can I do here to attack the opponent or develop my pieces? Here, the pawn on d2 is quite weak. Therefore, bishop b4, targeting that pawn makes a lot of sense. I also considered moves like taking on a4, which looks strong in certain ways, but in the end, I decided not to go for it. So instead, bishop b4 played in the game, targeting d2. White goes rook d1, defending. And here I make a move that it turns out is actually a tactical mistake, and I did not realize it in the game. I played the move bishop takes d2, and this is a tactical flaw. Instead, simply capturing the knight might be the way to go here. Instead, I take on d2, and the problem is white can actually go knight c5, and all of a sudden I sort of have some problems. If I go back to, say, d4, trying to defend the bishop on d2, white has knight to e6, forking the rooks. There's actually just a lot of kind of weird lines where white might be able to win some material. So overall, I got a little trigger happy, and made a tactical mistake. So I'm actually quite weak at tactics overall. That is my one big weak point in chess. It's not a good weak point to have, but I'm actually pretty good at openings and strategy. I'm a lot weaker at tactics, but I digress. All right, from here, white. He does not punish me. He takes on d2 with the bishop. Bishop takes d2 is the move. I take back with the rook. Rook takes d2. Then we have rook takes, and then rook b2. Actually, a good move by white. The point being, right now, I'm threatening this pawn. If I win that pawn, it's going to be a very tough defense for white. So, white here, he defends and offers the trade of rooks. Now, I like my rook. I think my rook's a little more active than white's. So here, I simply go back to the first rank. Rook e1, trying to sort of maintain the tension. It's a long endgame ahead. Either side could win. We're both in time pressure. And here in this position, my opponent makes a critical mistake. And I'm going to show you the move, and I want you to try to find the winning idea. And there's a reason why I'm doing this. Here, white plays the move, knight takes f5. So what is the winning idea for black? It's not a trick question at all. The winning idea, you just take the knight. And here my opponent resigned. And the final lesson of this game, even at, I mean, this guy is actually like 1500 ELO. He's not, 1251 here. His rapid rating is actually about 1500, and he's improving very, very fast. So even at the roughly 1500 ELO level, players are literally blundering pieces like outright. We're not talking complicated tactics. We're talking like literal, mind-melting blunders like this that are just completely absurd. And it happens all the time, even at my level, around 2,000 ELO. So whether you're 1,000, 1,500, or 2,000 ELO, I can almost promise you, you and your opponents are still blundering pieces during your games, which, number one, means if you just find a way to stop blundering, your rating will explode. But number two, like reaching 1,000 or even 2,000 ELO is not this, it's an amazing achievement, but it's also not impossible because players are actually messing up left and right at that level. So don't let anyone else try to tell you otherwise. We're actually not like chess gods. We make mistakes all the time in our games. So it really is quite doable to reach our level. Anyways, the main lesson for this video is don't memorize openings. Yes, there are some times where you do have to memorize certain ideas. For example, in the fried liver, one of the most complicated, sharpest lines in all of chess, knight g5, there are some moves you have to know. For example, here, you have to know you're playing d5. If white takes, you have to know knight a5. If white gives the check, you have to know block the check. And from here, you have to have at least a basic idea of what to do versus all of the different white responses, including queen to f3, bishop d3, bishop e2, and so on. So you do need to have some idea of what you're doing. You have to have some memorized knowledge, but beyond that, like at some point, it's more about the plans and ideas. For example, here, when white plays this, my immediate thought process is bishop e7. White's going to have to capture. If he doesn't, I just castle and keep going. If he takes, I take back, block the attack, and then bishop e7 and castles. And once I go there and castles, for example, if we go forward a little bit, like this, and I castle, I know from here, my main idea is, first of all, activate this rook on c8, targeting c2. It might also go to c6, and then f6 or g6 in some order. Not necessarily right away, but at some point in some order, it might do that. My knight on f6, it's going to go most likely to g4, maybe intending f5, or g4 intending ideas like knight h6, knight f5, knight d4, forking the queen, forking c2, and so on, plus the rook lift. Like, I have these ideas in my head. They're not memorized. It's sort of an understanding of these are my different plans. I can play them in varying move orders, but this is generally what I'm trying to accomplish in this position. And if you just understand that, if you just understand the basic objectives you have, the basic goals, then instead of wondering, what do I do? It's more like, in what order do I accomplish these varying ideas? Do I move the rook first? Do I move the F pawn first? Do I move the knight here? Once it's here, do I leave it there, or do I go back to H6 and then F5 and D4 and so on? It's more like, in what order do I find and execute my plans instead of what are they in the first place? So if you just understand the ideas behind your openings, where your pieces go, what the plans are, what the ideas are, and so on, instead of trying to just brute force memorize every single line, you will improve so much faster, I guarantee it. And by the way, that was one of the main lessons I taught my student here. And it's one of the main reasons he skyrocketed almost 300 ELO in a month now. It's kind of absurd how fast he's going up right now. It really is insane. This guy, he's actually the one who inspired me to cover the Dubov variation in the recent opening video. I digress. But anyways, the main lesson today, don't memorize openings. Instead, try to understand them, understand your plans and ideas. And I promise you, you will improve so much faster if you can just do that. I guarantee it. You'll be amazed how fast you improve. All right, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, I do have a free online chess community where I can teach you how to play much better chess much faster. The link is drmikechess.com, like my YouTube handle, drmikechess.com. My real name, by the way, is Dr. Mike Jansen, in case you're curious. But it's my free online community. I have free opening courses there. I have group coaching calls there. If you want to get your games reviewed by me personally, I will personally review your games when you join the community. I'll show you where you went wrong, how to improve, and so on. So by all means, go right there. Links down below. I will personally help you get better online chess. I love you guys. It's really important to me that you guys actually reach your goals. If you want to get better online chess, I will help you. We will make it happen. So beyond that, if you want to support this channel, go ahead and smash that YouTube like button. It helps me a ton, so thank you so much for doing that. And comment down below whatever you want. I am getting better at responding to comments. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.